and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we have a special guest, John Anthony of the Vindys, a local band from Youngstown, Ohio.
Hello.
He's here to, he bravely volunteered to be a macaroni and cheese sampler. So today's episode is called the Mac and Cheese episode with John Anthony. That's the name. So we tried out a couple of different kinds of macaroni and cheese. For this episode, we used all elbow macaroni. I didn't use any fancy kind of macaroni because I wanted to keep them kind of similar. So we tried 3 basic recipes out. We tried a recipe from Savannah, Georgia, from Mrs. Wilkes' Kitchen in Savannah, Georgia. We tried a recipe from the back of the Muller's elbow macaroni package called double cheese mac and cheese. And then we tried the trusty Better Homes and Garden version that I make all the time. My family doesn't like macaroni and cheese, so it's basically for myself and my son. We're the only 2 that really like it. Everyone is lactose intolerant. So, you know, we don't want to do that. So, what did you think of the different mac and cheeses? What did you like, not like?
I thought the Better Homes and Gardens one, we were talking about it earlier, was a little bit different with the onion and it being more of a creamier macaroni and cheese. The other ones were more, I don't even know how to explain. The
like
cheese.
Solid,
yeah.
Okay.
And I thought that it was more almost like a pierogi casserole.
Yeah.
Because there's onion added in it.
Yeah, and you could really taste the onion. Okay.
Right. And then the Muller's, which is the Midwest one, right?
Yes.
Okay. I like that one a lot just because I felt like it was a little bit, like it was more solid, had more of a cheese taste to it, opposed to the Mrs. Wilkes, which you said consisted of the egg.
Yeah, it had more egg and milk.
And it took away from what I felt was the cheese flavor of macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, it had a lot. It's a lot more like it's like a souffle. It's like a souffle with elbow macaroni and cheese inside of it. So
right. Well, what kind of cheese did you use with the Mrs. Wilkes?
Okay, for Mrs. Wilkes, I used a sharp cheddar cheese, and then for the Muller's recipe, I used a mild cheddar or a medium cheddar and some what's that called? Monterey Jack. I used some Monterey Jack with that. Because you have to put, like the Muller's one, when I go through the recipe, you put some of the macaroni and cheese in the dish, and then you layer even more cheese in the middle, and then you put even more cheese on top.
Ugh.
So it had the medium cheddar and the Monterey Jack, and then for the Better Homes and Garden one, we used Colby primarily, and we used, I think it was a cup of Colby cheese and a half a cup of Monterey Jack cheese blended. And that, so it's a little bit less cheese. It makes a smaller batch, let's put it that way. It doesn't make as much anyway, but it was a little bit less cheese, a little bit milder of a cheese in it too. So it's amazing what a different variety of cheese can be, and you can use, most macaroni and cheese calls for American cheese or like Velveeta cheese, but you can also experiment with different types, especially cheddars. Cheddars are really nice for mac and cheese. Yeah, so if you want to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm more of a sharp cheddar person myself when it comes to macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, and it's a lot more flavor in it too. So these are just 3 really basic macaroni and cheese recipes that I thought were representative of all of the recipes that are out there. So the Mrs. Wilkes is it's a Southern style, and what that recipe is 2 cups of uncooked elbow macaroni or 4 cups of cooked. After you cook it, you're going to have about 4 cups. 2 cups of grated sharp cheddar cheese, 3 cups of milk, 4 eggs beat up well, and a half a cup of butter. And for that one, you're going to cook the elbow macaroni per the package instructions, drain it and put it right back in the pot. And then you add butter and stir it while it melts. Then you put in the eggs and the milk, and you mix that well and stir in the cheese. And then you're going to pour that into a greased casserole dish and bake it for 30 minutes at 350. And it's really funny when it looks like elbow macaroni soup when you pour it into the dish, and then it comes out like I said, like a souffle. So it's a very different look probably to what most people make. The Muller's one is similar, but it starts with a roux, as does the trusty Better Homes and Garden recipe. And a roux is basically you melt butter in your skillet and you stir flour into it quickly and then add milk so that the flour is incorporated into the butter. And when you add the milk slowly and stir that up, it thickens up nicely and you get this nice thick white sauce base. So for the mullers, it calls for the whole box of pasta, which is like 3 cups of pasta, which is about 6 cups cooked, and a 4th cup of butter, a 3rd cup of flour, salt and pepper, and you make that into a roux. And then you add your milk. You're going to add 4 cups of milk, 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, and then you're going to mix that together. So your macaroni will be incorporated into that sauce. Then when you layer this thing up, you put it in a 9x13 dish, and you put half of your macaroni and cheese mixture in it. Then you top it with a 1/2 cup of shredded cheese again, and I use the Monterey Jack cheese for that. Then you put the rest of the macaroni mixture in it, and then you put more cheddar cheese on top, and you bake that for 30 minutes at 375. That's a lot of cheese. It ends up being like 3 or 4 cups of cheese by the time you're all done cheesing everything up. So that's a lot of cheese there. And then the Better Homes and Gardens one, you only use 3 cups of cooked elbows, like 1.5 cups of uncooked. You make a roux again with a 4th cup butter, but in this roux, you melt your butter and you cook a 4th cup of finely chopped onion in it. And once the onion is nice and soft and cooked, you add the flour and make your roux. And then you're going to add your 2 cups of milk and 2 cups of cheese, whichever kind of cheese you choose, which I had like I said, I had the Colby and Monterey Jack. And then what I do with it is I just make it into a cheese sauce and I pour it over the elbows, but I don't bake it. So then you get that creamy, saucy effect, because when you bake it, it soaks it all into the elbows and you get like the other two. It's a more firm recipe. So now you know everything there is to know about macaroni and cheese.
I made it on a crock pot one time, but it was very similar to Mrs. Wilkes' way of doing it. Yeah, tried that once. It was different.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it in a crock pot, because you could throw it in there and leave.
Yeah.
And you come back 10 hours later and you remember that you made it, which is nice. Like, oh, yeah.
Yes.
I made that mac and cheese.
Yeah, it was like deceiving. It started off with like a lot of cheese and it seemed like it was almost going to be creamy, but then being in the crock pot so long, it turned it into a fluffier, more solid.
Yeah, and it'll absorb, the macaroni and cheese will continue to absorb moisture, which is why when you cook it, what I typically do is on the box, it'll have instructions for cooking. So like on the mullers, it says to bring your water to a boil. You add a little bit of salt. A lot of people add a lot of salt, maybe like 2 shakes from a salt shaker. You don't need to add a bunch. And then once it comes to a boil, you add your pasta. And I always go, this says cook 9 to 11 minutes, so I cook it 10 minutes. Because that way it's not quite cooked the whole way, and it can absorb the moisture from the macaroni and cheese, from the cheese mixture, not the macaroni and cheese mixture, but the cheese mixture. And it absorbs it a little bit. But when you bake it like in the crock pot, it's going to really, absorb it right up. So that's a good thing to know too. You don't want to have your pasta cooked like super done when you make anything like this that you're going to bake, because that way it'll get really mushy if you take it the whole way. So you want to leave it a little bit like al dente, which is, it's a little bit hard when you bite it.
Right.
So that's our macaroni and cheese episode. Now you can make macaroni and cheese to your little heart's contents. All these recipes. We'll, of course, post these online. We'll have our recipes posted, and we'll have a nice description of what we did on our Facebook page.
Our Facebook page is Mary Mac Bakehouse. We're Mary Mac Mixes on Twitter, and marymacpodcast.com is the website.
And if you go to our website, marymacpodcast.com, we have recipe cards on there, which we're trying to get caught up right now. We're a little bit behind. But we do have recipe cards for most of the things on our episodes. So you can go there and print it out. And you look at the card while you're listening to the episode, and kind of gives you a little bit of help there. So you can, be able to make the recipe. And then we'll have the pictures up on our website, on our Facebook page, so you can look at the pictures and see what it should look like when it's done. Do you have anything going on in the future, John?
Not so much right now. We're looking at doing some fall touring and some winter touring as well. We have a vinyl coming out in October.
A vinyl?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So we just finished that up and just submitted all that, and it takes about a 2.5 month turnaround to get the vinyl. So we're doing that. We're doing some Columbus dates, which will be after the podcast airs, and then doing some stuff in Akron, doing some in-studio radio stations in Akron, and then also doing some record store meet and greets as well. Coming
Oh,
up in
nice.
Akron. Yeah, at the end of August. So
That's really nice. I'll have to make sure I get that vinyl.
Yeah.
So keep your ears open for the Vindys all around Western Pennsylvania and Eastern Ohio and all around the world, all around the web. And support them, buy their music, and enjoy it. It's really good. Actually, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love it. So thank you very much for listening if you did. And if you didn't, too bad for you.